welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are joining me here for the first time on my channel. Thank you for dropping in and spending some time with me. So today I have a lot of personal and garden updates to share. So the first thing I wanted to share with you guys is that I am stood here with a horrendously ugly and chunky boot to immobilize my ankle and foot for the next 2 weeks while I let my extensor tendonitis heal. So a little bit of a story time here. I got into golfing a few years back with my husband, and I was trying to hit the ball, and the second I turned my ankle a little bit, I felt a pop or snap, I guess, in my right ankle, and immediately knew that either I had subluxed it or maybe just hurt it in some manner. And it started to swell up huge for the next week or two, and just kind of a lasting pain stayed there. And then I would say about a year after that, I started to get swelling in the top of my foot as well, just beneath my toes. And that pain kind of extended from the base of the toes, ran all the way up the top of my foot and through my ankle and into my shin. So I knew that this was probably a soft tissue injury. I did go get an x-ray just to make sure that nothing was broken, and thankfully all of that checked out okay. And so I just kind of sat back and thought, oh, it'll heal with time, and tried to take it somewhat easy. And long story short, we're here 4 years later and it didn't get any better. So it had been kind of livable, but I would get a lot of swelling here and there on certain days when I would do physical activity. So fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I decided to go golfing for the first time again in like 2 years, and stepped out there and just started to feel the swelling coming back. And then the pain and the swelling were really, really bad this whole week. So finally bit the bullet and said, okay, I gotta go to the podiatrist. I went, and she confirmed that she thought it was probably extensor tendonitis, got the boot. So now we're here with the boot for 2 weeks. And honestly, this is ideal timing because I have some travel planned early next month. And honestly, it will probably require a decent amount of walking on that trip. So getting this healed up and in a good state before that trip is ideal. So this definitely feels a little weird. I got one foot that feels a lot longer than the other, but it's okay. It is for my best interest, and hopefully in 2 weeks I'll see a lot of improvement. Right now I'm not just rocking the boot, I've also got a plastic garbage bag tied around the boot because it's muddy back here, and of course just the elements and the grass and whatnot, I have to wear it at all times, so I didn't want to track it into the house. So it looks extra quirky right now, but that's okay. Like I said, it's all in the name of healing, and this is definitely something I needed to do. For those of you out there with chronic illness, I think you'll probably relate to this, that there's so much going on all the time that sometimes things like that seem more like a little problem, and you have bigger problems to solve, so you just put them off and put them off. It's like the bottom of the barrel, the last thing on the list to address, but it started to get worse and worse and really yell at me. So did something about it, finally. Injuries aside, I had the opportunity this week to go to my favorite yearly, well, I guess it's 3 times yearly. They do a spring, a fall, and a Christmas market. It is the antique market that I've mentioned previously on this channel with you guys, and I just think it is a gem of an event to find these days. They have the best vendors, the best selection, and the prices are amazing. So I really love going, and I just went this past Friday. It's such a busy event. People around here go crazy for it and love it. So it's very popular, and I had thought about getting some footage for you guys, but unfortunately there was just, or I guess I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it's a great thing for the vendors to have a lot of customers, but I just didn't want to have a camera on people's faces. It's so packed in there, so getting footage would have been tricky. And also, I didn't want to be a burden to anyone and kind of get in people's way or get them in the shop, because I'm very mindful of people's privacy and doing that. So unfortunately, I didn't get any footage for you guys, but I did want to take you around and show you some of the antique pieces that I got in this video. And spoiler alert, one of the things that I picked up is here with me in the background, and that is this large antique woven basket. I love finding pieces like this at markets because they are so much more affordable, or at least at this particular market they are. I believe this was about $30 to $40. I was really happy to score this, and I just think it's beautiful, and I personally can never have enough baskets. I love collecting baskets. It's a new joy of mine, and this will be, I think, my 4th basket find. Speaking of those baskets, unfortunately, one of them did get attacked recently by our oldest corgi Rex, which is so sad. He has a little bit of an obsession with chewing on wood, or I guess anything that is a similar texture, and I think he got bored one day and just decided to chew it. So it's depressing, but it's not ruined, it just is a little bit torn at one of the bottom edges. Quick chat about the ducks. They are so close to being fully feathered. They're probably only another week or 2 weeks out from being ready to be out here and fully in their house back here. We did attempt to start building their home, but we couldn't find the instructions, so we had to contact the maker of the coop and have them send the instructions to us, and we haven't seen them digitally, so I don't know if perhaps they're mailing them, but if they do, then obviously that will be a bit of a delay. So that is still in progress, and given my injury, that's kind of all on my husband right now. So I suspect we're not going to have any movement there for at least the next few weeks. All right, let's talk about some garden updates. So yesterday, before I got my foot put into this boot, I did spend several hours back in the critter fence filling up that bed that I mentioned that I had started working on, and I'm so happy to say that it's about like 45 maybe percent filled, 40 to 45% filled, and it's been a lot of work, but I'm finally seeing actual progress. And again, sadly with the boot, obviously there's going to be several more week delay before it's finished, but I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully by end of June it's filled. We'll see, I don't know. If you guys have suggestions for what I should grow, please let me know. All right, we've got multiple wasps circling the greenhouse right now, just heads up. So no, I can't run in this boot. I can't run in this boot. I'm gonna trip myself, guys. I hope we don't catch that on camera. I just opened up the greenhouse door so that hopefully he sees it's open and makes his way out. But again, if you see me run, you know why. Oh, it looks like he's on the edge. Come on, go, bud. You're like 2 inches from the door. Go. All right, anyway, other exciting updates I have to share with you is that my roses are finally starting to get buds. So that means now we're in a race against the deer to spray and protect them. Like I said in a previous video, at least for the front roses and for the one beside my greenhouse. It has to be treated with a kind of nasty smelling, it's non-toxic, but substance so that they avoid them. So we got to start doing that, and the ones in the critter fence are a little behind because I had transplanted them, but I'm really excited for rose season to begin. Another exciting update is that my native wild geranium plant that I put in one of the beds beside my greenhouse is blooming. There is a singular light purple flower, and it's so pretty. I love using these as decoration on baked goods, cakes, cupcakes, all that. And it honestly matches perfectly with the purple lilac, so maybe we'll use that in one of the recipes that I'm hoping to do with you in this video, and more on that in a second. But speaking of lilacs, let's talk about them. So they are fully bloomed at this point, and they're doing so well. I think we're kind of starting on the decline now of they've reached their max, I guess, beauty, if you will. And over the next couple of weeks, they'll start kind of receding back and dying off. So for today's video, I wanted to make some lilac infused sugar, which I believe I referenced on my previous video, but never got around to making. And I also found an online recipe for some lilac infused cupcakes that I thought would be awesome to create as well. And of course, I'll be using my new basket to gather our lilacs today. So let's go. Just for a quick laugh, this is what I'm working with, guys. This is the boot with the plastic bag over it. So fashionable. This is a little butterhead lettuce plant that I planted back here a couple weeks ago after I picked it up from the garden center, and I've got it closhed to protect it from the dogs and the deer. Looks like we have 2 flowers now. Look how gorgeous the pale lavender kind of periwinkle color petals look. It looks like we have a lot of additional buds coming in also. This is the second year of this Alchemilla mollis being back here next to my greenhouse, and it's finally starting to get a little bit bigger and spread. You can see this tiny, tiny rosebud starting to come up. And then here are my 2 rhubarb plants. This is only the second year that I've had them planted, so I have not harvested them yet. This is how the herb bed is looking right now. So we've got the giant lemon balm, and we've got some comfrey, lavender, thyme, and oregano, and sage. The lavender has come back a little slowly. I have to actually trim back the dead bits. It looks like something is kind of eating the comfrey over here. Something's just slightly nibbling at it. This is a much larger comfrey plant that I have, and it has these gorgeous light purple flowers. have a little moth friend. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of an antique show and tell here. Please excuse the very furry rug under this little table. I have to vacuum it. It gets absolutely covered with an Australian Shepherd and 2 corgis. They They shed like crazy. And this was the first antique market find this Friday. I had actually seen either the same one or a really similar one last year and had regretted not getting it. So when I saw this, I was really happy and I thought it was a great price, so I picked it up, and it makes the perfect coffee table for us. I really like the rustic patina that it has. All right, so another find. This is a handmade mini pine bench, and at first I thought I was gonna put it in the greenhouse, and I still might, but I actually think it looks really cute where it's at. And I'm thinking I'm gonna put some cushions on it, maybe like a nice long seat cushion, and then some pillows on it, and it'd be so cute and comfy. I really like the raw unlacquered finish that it has. Okay, so now we go over to a couple of stone animal finds. This is a weathered old, I think, concrete duck. It's so cute, and I thought it was the perfect addition given our little ducklings that we have. I mentioned earlier that I like to collect baskets, and I also talked about my dog Rex kind of chewing up one of my baskets. It's actually this one right here. If you take a look, he did bite through some of those woven pieces right there. So sad. All right, so here is another new addition to my stone animal collection, and it is a standing rabbit. I love all stone animal statues, but I think rabbits are probably my favorite to collect. And even though they're intended to be garden statues, I really like putting them along the base of our stone fireplace here. I have another stone bunny right next to her. This is from Campo de Fiori. All right, and obviously you guys have already seen the basket that I showed you earlier in the greenhouse, but I also wanted to show you my second to last find, which is this gorgeous, I think it's iron, antique French vase. I loved this kind of scallop detail around the rim, and just think this would be really pretty for either a plant or doing a flower arrangement, which is actually what we're going to be doing here in a second. But before we do that, the last find is actually what it's sitting on. So this is a pretty large marble top, cedar wood base table, and it's temporarily here in our living room against a wall while we finish our sunroom, because long term I wanted to put it in there and kind of use it as kind of what we're doing with it today, which is a flower arranging table, and have a place to hold my baskets and my flower pots and my vases and all of those things. So I thought this was gorgeous, and say hi to Rex in the background. I really like, one, this tabletop is so thick and heavy. We did have to pay someone to carry it in here because there was no way I was able to pick it up with my husband and carry it in. And here's just a slightly zoomed out angle of it so that you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so I just wanted to film a really quick, simple flower arrangement using some of the foraged lilacs, as well as I went out to my deck, and recently I planted a couple of dahlias out there. This is one of those dahlias. And as you can see, she is this really pretty punchy magenta red color. And then I also went ahead and snipped off 3 alliums that were next to my greenhouse. I'm wearing gloves because technically I am allergic to onion and garlic, so I have no idea if these would make me allergic. So just to be safe, just thought that they would add a little bit of whimsy into the arrangement. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So for the first step, as always, I'm going to use a metal flower frog and place it in the vase and then fill it up with some water. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my lilac first, and I unfortunately trimmed this one a little too short, but let's give it a go. Because some of these stems are so thin, it's a little tricky for me to get them balanced on the frog. So I'm more just kind of laying them in here rather than impaling the stem with one of the spikes on the frog. Like this one, I just have to lay in there. Okay, there we go. I'm really happy with this. I think it looks perfectly imperfect, which is how I love my floral arrangements to look. And we're gonna go ahead and add the alliums in. All right, and now it's time to place our dahlia. I think I'm just going to make these a little bit shorter. I wanted them to stand out, but I think they were standing out a little too much. All right, and there's the finished arrangement. I'm really happy with it. I think it definitely looks a little bit whimsical, a little bit messy, which I really like, and I love the pops of color. We are back to our familiar baking spot. I'm sure if you guys have seen my previous videos, you'll know that I love to bake right here. And we are going to start working on the lilac infused sugar with the recipe that I mentioned earlier in the greenhouse. And the recipe that I'm referring to is by Lord Byron's Kitchen. And let's see, I'm scrolling through it right now on my phone. So it says that we want to do a cup of lilac flowers packed tightly and a cup of sugar, and then there's a methodology for how to put it all together. And sorry if you guys can hear my corgis being a little crazy in the background. So I wanted to walk through some of the things that I have here to do this with. So here is a, I guess, copper clasp glass jar that I have that is airtight, sealable, and I wish I remembered where I got this because I really like it. It's quite fashionable, but I have to admit, I don't know where I got it. Maybe Sur La Table? How do you say that place? Sur La Table? Sur La... I don't feel like I'm saying that correctly at all because it's a French store. Anyway, getting off on a tangent. So we're gonna use this jar. I don't know if this is going to hold a cup of flowers plus a cup of sugar. I'm really bad at looking at something and making that type of assessment. So I think I'm going to instead do about 3/4 cup or maybe a half a cup. We'll see where we land. But then I also have this bowl of lilac flowers freshly gathered from the garden, and I'm gonna go give them a rinse, and then we'll start plucking them together. And then I have a cute little compote dish to store the flowers in, and a measuring cup. So let's get started. Okay, I tried to dry the flowers off as best as I could. I'm assuming you really don't want to introduce moisture into this recipe if you can help it. So hopefully these flowers are dry enough for us to do this successfully, but let's go ahead and work on removing the flowers. I'm hoping, since I selected blooms that are mostly fully bloomed, that they come off easily, but we shall see. I'm not sure what the easiest method is for removing these flowers, but they come off pretty easily if I just kind of hold the stem firmly and pull them. So let me know, drop a comment down below if you guys know of a better way, a more effective way to do this. It's definitely much easier to remove them when they're fully bloomed and not still buds. I ended up getting way more than I expected from that one flower, so I think we're definitely going to have some leftover lilac in this bowl that I can repurpose for something else. All right, moving forward with this really big flower. Gonna get a lot from this one. Okay, and the recipe does specify that these flowers should be packed down, so let's see if we pack them down, if we reduce the volume pretty significantly, pretty much in half here. Okay, so I think we'll do 1 or 2 more blooms here just to get the full amount that we need. Can always use less if needed. All right, let's try to pack them down again and see what we have. And I think whatever we have here, I'll just match an equal part of sugar with for our infused sugar recipe. Okay, looks roughly like a 1/2 cup. So now we'll go ahead and get a 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed my 1/2 cup of sugar, and looking at the recipe, it says to use a glass jar, which we have, and to place 1/4 of the lilac petals in an even layer at the bottom, and then cover it over with a 1/4 cup of the sugar. I'm just gonna roughly eye that, and then it says to repeat it with another layer of lilacs and another layer of sugar, and essentially we're gonna continue that pattern until the very end. And this is important. It says do not cover the jar. Lay a light napkin over the top and set the jar aside out of any direct sunlight. And then you want to let the lilacs infuse the sugar for 5 days. And it says you want to gently stir the sugar and lilac mixture every morning, otherwise the moisture will cause the sugar to harden. And by the final day, the lilacs will have dried and turned a brown color. So you can remove them or leave them in, it's fine, but aesthetically probably not that pretty. So it then says you want to pour the contents into a fine mesh colander with a bowl underneath and remove out those dried lilacs. So let's go ahead and start layering the lilac and the sugar. All right, I went ahead and grabbed a bigger spoon for this activity, and I'm just going to start putting the lilacs in the jar. I feel like I disproportionately used up a little too much sugar on the layer before this, so I'm just going to grab a tiny bit more sugar and then fill it onto the top. Okay, I think that surprisingly ended up being just about the perfect amount of lilac and sugar for this size jar. And I'm going to go ahead and cover it with a paper towel like it said, and we'll let it sit for about 5 days. Okay, on to the next recipe. I know I mentioned in the greenhouse that I wanted to try a lilac lemon cupcake recipe that I found. However, after looking over that recipe, I don't have quite all of the ingredients and it looks like it's going to take a lot of prep work. So feeling a bit lazy today, and I think instead I'm going to go with a recipe that I found on oliveandmango.com, and it's for a lilac lemon blackberry pound cake with a lilac glaze. I don't have blackberries, so I'll be using frozen blueberries as a replacement. And the first thing it says to do is to whisk together butter and lilac sugar, and it wants 1/2 cup of butter, which I believe equals out to 1 whole stick. So I'll go melt that. And as you know, we have lilac sugar in the works, but we don't quite have it completed. So I am going to substitute instead with my lilac syrup that we made in the last video and just add a little bit to the sugar to give it that lilac infused flavor. Okay, so I went and melted the butter and debatably melted it a little too much. And I've got my cup of sugar and my lilac syrup, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so now I'm going to use about a tablespoon of lilac syrup. All right, and let's go ahead and mix it together. Okay, so now for the next step, it says we have to whisk in eggs, vanilla, lemon zest, and juice. And let's see how much of it we need. We need half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And it says finely grated zest and juice of 1 lemon. I'm kind of low on lemon right now. I think I can scrimp that together, but we'll see. We have like a half-used lemon in the fridge right now from the last thing I cooked. So we'll see if we can make that work. And we need 2 large eggs. That was a messy as heck pour. A lot of it just went down the back of the bowl. You didn't just see that. Just pretend that that didn't happen. All right, so I've already stole most of the zest from this lemon, but we'll see what we can scrape out of it. I really wish you guys could smell the bowl of lilac I've got here in the corner. It smells so good. I think that's about as much lemon zest as we're gonna get from that half of the lemon. The other half pretty much had none left. And now we're just gonna pour in the lemon juice. For the next step, you want to use a small bowl and whisk together the flour, the baking powder, and salt. And it's 1½ cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So for the next part, we want to add half of the flour mixture that we just stirred together into the butter mixture that I have back in that bowl. And you want to stir until just combined, and then we'll add in the milk, and then we will add the remaining dry ingredients. And I'm using fresh made oat milk instead of cow's milk for this. So now I've got my 1 cup of frozen blueberries, and it specifically says not to thaw them if they are frozen. So honestly, that works better for me anyway because I hadn't thawed them. So I've got them prepared here. This is like the texture of a really yummy cookie dough. It's so creamy, looks so good. And some of these blackberries are kind of frozen together in clumps, so I might get a little clumpy surprise of blueberries in the cake. For the final step, I went and got my glass loaf pan and greased it, and I'm going to add in the batter, and we're going to bake it for 50 to 60 minutes at 350 degrees. Okay, not the prettiest job because the batter is really thick, so I'm going to attempt to smooth it out a little bit with this spatula. Okay, Okay, I think that's about as smooth as we're gonna get it. Let's go ahead and pop it in the oven. While that's baking, let's go ahead and work on the lilac glaze. It says to use 1/4 to 1/2 cup of sugar. I'm gonna do 1/2 cup and 2 to 4 tablespoons of lilac syrup. It does not want to come out. There we go. Okay, and now I want to do a little bit of an experiment and transform this beige icing into hopefully something that looks a little bit more lilac-y, maybe a purpley color. And so to do that, I'm going to use those frozen blueberries and mix some of them up, hoping that the juice kind of turns and dyes the icing the color that I want. And then I'll remove the whole berries when I'm done mixing it up. Alright, so I ended up with a light purple, which is pretty much what I was looking for. So I'm just going to remove the berries, and I guess I could top these onto the icing at the very end if I wanted to. Alright, so the loaf is out of the oven and completely cooked through. And for the final step, we're going to decorate, and we're going to go ahead and apply the lilac glaze that we made, as well as some of the lilac flowers that we have gathered over here. I don't really think there's a clean way to do this, so I'm just going to spread it as best as I can. I am actually quite happy with the color of the glaze and how that turned out. And I almost forgot about these blueberries, but I do want to put them on the top of our loaf here. It's giving it that nice purpley stain color. I also just want to sprinkle the tiniest bit of confectioner's sugar here. All right, all that's left is to decorate with some lilac flowers. There's the completed loaf.